It's a special day for the Locked On Predators podcast. Today, we are starting our look at the top 25 Nashville Predators players of all time in honor of the team's 25th anniversary. And we'll kick it off with 25 through 21 today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I want to start out with a special hello to our loyal Locked On Pred heads, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week after week after week. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at InsideThePreds.com.
We're excited to kick off this series, Ann. This is our official list of the top 25 Nashville Predators players of all time.
Oh, we are dipping our toes in the controversy waters of ranking players. But you know what? We're right.
Yeah.
We're comfortable.
We're right, and we need something to talk about this summer.
Yeah.
So here's a couple.
This is so fun though, because here, and you and I talked about this. The downside of doing these episodes for me is it's hours lost reliving great moments on YouTube. So y'all be warned. Be careful.
Sometimes not great moments.
And sometimes not great moments. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So here's a couple of things to talk about. One is how we rank them. We rank them on 3 categories: impact, longevity, and legacy.
Yeah.
Impact. How do they do on the ice? What do they do for the team? Did the team do better or worse without them? Longevity. Easily, like, were they a consistent force? Were they only here for a couple of years? Sort of a bang for your buck may move them up and down the rankings. And then legacy. How do Preds fans look at them today? Are they beloved? Looking back, do we appreciate certain players a little bit more than we did while they were playing here? That plays into it as well. And the last thing, Ann, is this is meant to spur debate. You may have a player that you think played an important role on this team that didn't necessarily make the list, or maybe you have somebody ranked higher or lower than we do. That's fine. This is just our list. This is meant to spark some fun debate. So what we're going to ask you to do is, once we get through the rankings, maybe you hear a player on our show that you're like, whoa, that player needs to be, top 10, and you have them number 25. Let us know. Tweet us at LO_Predators or comment on our YouTube page. This is meant to kind of be our thing that sparks a debate. So yeah, we're excited, Ann.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really fun. I'm leaning a little bit heavily on you, Nick, for the old school guys, because I'm more of a millennial when it comes to things like the Nashville Predators. But I will say it was kind of fun looking back and reading about some of these players. I'm like, y'all were a little crazy in those early years. Y'all were crazy.
Yeah, there's a couple that we're going to get to that I'm sure you have some big crazy thoughts that we're going to get to just for some fun moments. Before we start our list, just want to shout out a couple of honorable mentions.
Yes.
These are players that we think deserve a shout out that maybe didn't, for whatever reason, just couldn't crack the top 25. One is Jordan Tutu,
which I think will surprise people.
Yeah, I mean, played a very long time for the Nashville Predators. Kind of looked like he was breaking through right at the end there, but then, beloved player, great fighter. From maybe the reason he didn't rank top 25 is just maybe the on ice, like the scoring part didn't necessarily come about. He did have a career high 30-point season his last year in Nashville, but just couldn't quite put the the scoring aspect together. The other one is maybe this one might surprise people, not on the list. In fact, he was on the list at one time, and we had to move him off because of a pretty glaring omission when we ran this by a couple of our friends, and that is Marek Zidlitsky.
Yeah.
This was a player who, seemed like he was kind of caught in between eras. First, he was a very good defenseman overshadowed by Kimmo Timonen. Then he was a very good defenseman overshadowed by Shea Weber and Ryan Suter. But he was always just a very solid, either a compliment to the top pair or very good second pair guy. And then the last is, here's a name, Vladimir Orzog.
Who never gets enough.
Just because he was such a fun player, leader of that vowel line. Yeah. So just want to give Vladimir Orzog a little bit of
shout out to those guys.
He was contributed a little bit.
Yeah. But we have a list, y'all. We have the official list, and it starts now. We love our honorable mentions.
Yeah.
But the official list begins now with number 25. Who is number 25, Nick?
Can I get a drum roll, please, Anne?
I mean,
number 25, greatest Nashville Predators of all time, J.P. Dumont.
Let's go.
Yeah. First off, there's a lot of fans that know him now. He's a coach for, I believe, the junior Nashville Predators. Out and about here in Nashville. This guy came to the team in 2006, 2007. He was the second big Predators signing that year. Of course, that was the year the Preds got Jason Arnott as well. And all J.P. Dumont did was score a lot.
That sounds so lovely.
Yeah. Where is he now, and can he still play?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
It was funny. I was at the 2006 season opener, and the Preds played the Chicago Blackhawks. J.P. Dumont, who I think a lot of casual fans just didn't know he was on the team or something like that. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's somebody we've sort of heard of.
Right.
And 15 seconds into that first game, and J.P. Dumont scores first goal of the season. I think he, helps the Nashville Predators fan base fall in love with him a little bit at that moment.
Yeah, when you help score the first goal of the season and it's against the Blackhawks, everybody's going to love you. J.P. Dumont is proof of that. He played a lot with Steve Sullivan and Jason Arnott. He had 11 multiple assist games. So this is a guy who created a lot of offense for them. He played, let me see, how many games total? 388 total games as a Nashville Predator, and had 93 goals, 174 assists, 267 points. So very productive for the Nashville Predators. And like you said, really was kind of that big name that came to Nashville and sort of started it being a cool place. Look, they're falling all over themselves now to get to play here, but J.P. Dumont started that.
Yeah. And he was a player that, had a couple of really good years with the Buffalo Sabres, kind of just, considered like a depth guy a little bit, had a couple of good 50-point seasons on, Buffalo Sabres teams that unfortunately for him kind of took a step back. And then Nashville is where he just broke, every career high. For me, and the big memory of J.P. Dumont is that 2007, 2008 Nashville Predators season, because that was the year that could have been complete disaster.
Yeah.
That was the year, of course, that was the relocation drama. For a while, we thought the Predators were moving to Hamilton, Ontario. The Predators, basically sold every good player they had, partly because David Poile wanted to, push the up and coming strong prospect pool. The other part was the ownership made him because they were going through a selling phase. And J.P. Dumont was one of the people that stuck around and really elevated his game. That year, where just, guys like Paul Kariya and a lot of other names that are on our list were either traded or left or not brought back. J.P. Dumont, that first year, his best season of his career. 29 goals, 43.7 or 43 assists, 72 points. His career year in the year where a lot of the best Nashville Predators got shipped away. And that tells you the type of player he is. And, we talked about this sadly before. Some people, they have their best years when they're, put next to, the best players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Others are at their best when they're out there and they elevate everyone else. And to me, JP Dumont was one of those that helped elevate everyone else.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we would love to see a little bit more of that right now. This is also a guy who helped the Predators reach the playoffs 4 out of his 5 seasons in Nashville. And this is a name that is just, I think, constantly going to be linked to the Nashville Predators, not for just what he did on the ice, but like you mentioned, this is somebody that's still involved in the Nashville Predators organization too. So shout out to JP Dumont, because it's more fun to say that way.
It is. Shout out to Paul McCann.
Who did that?
Who always did that.
That's right.
Yeah. More names to get to coming up. We got somebody on our list who is a more recent player that I'm sure somebody will have big feelings with. And we have a couple of players that if you've watched the Nashville Predators since day one, at one point, they were probably your favorite NHL players of all time. We're going to get to those on today's edition of the Top 25 Predators of all time. But first, need to take a second and mention that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, football season.
Coming on. Let's go.
Break out the tailgates, break out the 7-layer dips, and get that couch situated. That's because the NFL season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets every time that team you pick to win the Super Bowl wins a game in the regular season. That's it. So let's say you wanted to bet on the Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl. Every time the Bengals win, you get bonus bets for every win. You can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, so how many yards or touchdowns Derrick Henry is going to get in a game. Over unders, how many points are the Titans and Texans going to score in their matchup, and much, much more. All you need to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, Ann, we are continuing our list of the top 25 greatest Nashville Predators of all time. We are at number 24, Ann.
That's right, 24. Number 24 on our list is the ever popular Cliff Ronning.
Oh yeah, let's go, baby.
Let's go, baby. So this is a lot of punch in a little package. 5'8", 165 pounds, Cliff Ronning. But he came to play. He played for 17 years in the NHL. 4 of those years he played in Nashville. While with Nashville, played 301 games, 81 goals, 226 points. Was traded to Nashville from the Phoenix Coyotes for the ever popular future considerations. And then Nashville eventually traded him to the LA Kings. But while he was here, Nick, let's talk about what he did.
First off, he was everyone's favorite player, Ann.
Yeah.
Like, if you could score a number 7 jersey as a kid growing up in Middle Tennessee, you had it made in the shade.
You were cool.
Everybody's favorite player growing up. And, the big thing is he was kind of the Predators' first star player. Star player. Like, he was, never a dynamo or anything like that. Like, he, was never up there in the top tiers of NHL players or an all-star or anything like that. But he was, a very prominent player on a couple of very good teams. Of course, the Vancouver Canucks, when they reached the Stanley Cup in 1994, the Phoenix Coyotes, who were always in the mix because those were the Keith Tkachuk, Jeremy Roenick, Rick Tocchet years with Nikolai Khabibulin, just when they were always just some of the top teams in the NHL. And so here he comes to Nashville, a veteran player, a recognizable name, even amongst, kind of casual NHL circles. And all he did was be the Predators' best player for basically the entirety of his tenure here.
Yeah. And that will win people over every time. Hint to futures. Like, Score a lot. We will love you. He also played his 1000th game here in Nashville, which just blows my mind. That's a lot of hockey, y'all. That's a lot of hits. And here's something that kind of endeared him to the Nashville Predators fan base, or at least endears him to the fan base now as we look back. He scored 26 seconds into a game in February of 2000 in a win over the Dallas Stars. And that's just fun, friends.
That was a good
hit him early, hit him often.
Yeah. 26 goals the next year, which for a frustratingly long time was the team record. Yeah, he also, he had, what was it? 62 points the second and third years of the Nashville Predators, which are pretty good numbers for pretty bad teams.
Yeah.
My, favorite thing about Cliff Ronning was the trade that brought him here. He, like you mentioned, future considerations came over for Richard Littner. The Coyotes just wanted to do a few things different. And then, Cliff Ronning played so well that halfway through the season, the Coyotes were like, wait a second.
Can we take that one back?
Yeah, and then brought JJ Daigneault over because they're like, wait a sec, no, we actually need a good player. JJ Daigneault was one of the Predators, big veteran defenseman that first year. So Cliff Ronning, to me, people loved him because of his size. He was fast, always, seemed to be the fastest player on the ice whenever he was there, and just really took the reins of those early Nashville Predators teams. It felt like the Predators actually had, a star player to kind of cheer for, even though he wasn't really like, an NHL star. There's a couple of those on the list that we'll get to later, but he was kind of the first one that felt like, okay, this is our guy. This is somebody we can build around. That certainly, I think, set the tone.
Yeah. Let's jump into number 23 really quick. Let's talk about Scott Walker. He was drafted in 1993 by Vancouver, but Nashville just swooped right in, friends. And we did that thing that we hate Seattle for. We stole him in the expansion draft. And this was somebody who I think really kind of set a tone for Nashville Predators style of play.
Still to this day, one of my favorite Nashville Predators
really
ever, Ann.
Oh, I love this.
Absolutely. And it's funny, you go back through some of his old games and, you remember Scott Walker as the grit guy, always in fights, always throwing checks. Future Nashville Predators legend, Barrett Jackman, who, sorry guys, didn't make this list, once called Scott Walker the hardest person in the NHL to fight against.
Wow.
The best fighter in the NHL, according to Barrett Jackman.
Yeah.
And that's I think what people remember him for. Just, the penalty killer, the grit guy, the big hitter, the fighter. People forget Scott Walker could play. Especially those later years. 54 points, 25 goals in 2001. Battled injury issues for a while, which I think, maybe is a reason he's not higher on this list. But then, in 2004, that Predators' first playoff year, he was elevated to the top line, a guy that played alongside Steve Sullivan.
Yeah.
67 points, career high 67 points. And at that point, one of the highest point totals ever for a Nashville Predators player. And again, 25 goals that year. Scott Walker could play, Ann.
I love that. And this is somebody who has the statistics to back up what you're saying. He right now is 15th in power play goals in the Nashville Predators franchise history, 13th in points. He had 20 multi-assist games, 2 hat tricks. He, just a little bit of trivia, as they say in Pretty Woman, scored the first home ice hat trick in franchise history. Toss your caps, my friends.
And I still remember that.
Oh my gosh. Were you at that game?
I was not, but I remember watching it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Played here with Nashville for 7 years and racked up a total of 247 points as a Predator.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ann, that first home hat trick was Colorado?
It was Colorado again. Feels pretty good.
Back in the day.
Those
were really good Colorado teams.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Scott Walker.
Yeah,
just kind of taking Nick back to his childhood, y'all.
Scott Walker, Cliff Ronning, I think were everybody's favorite players at one point.
Yeah.
Scott Walker's still one of my favorite Nashville Predators. And again, he would be a lot higher on this list, and if injuries didn't kind of derail some seasons he had with the Nashville Predators, because this guy could play. Yeah. Also, one of the, unfortunately, the worst trades in Nashville Predators history was trading Scott Walker to Carolina.
Oh,
there's another bonus fun fact for you.
Yeah.
More to get to in this list. We guarantee there is the next two, the last two on this episode are somebody you will probably have some big feelings about. We'll get to those in a second, but first want to remind you that Locked On Predators is your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. You can get us wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Coming up, we are also going to start another series, our Central Division Frenemy podcast.
Let's go.
We got plans to record with the Avalanche folks a bit later, so that episode is hopefully coming out soon. We're also working to get crossovers with all of our other Central Division friends, so stay tuned because we will give you an inside look at all of the Central Division teams coming up on the Locked On Predators podcast. All right, Ann, we are continuing our list of the top 25 Nashville Predators players of all time. I'm going to tee you up for this one. Number 22.
22. Number 22.
Duchene.
Matt Duchene. Number 22.
Take it away, Ann.
God love it. Matt Duchene caused more arguments in my house in his tenure with the Nashville Predators than anything else. If you've listened to this podcast, you know that Matt Duchene has been a bit divisive in my marriage, but we're going to love him and my husband through that. Mm-hmm. Matt Duchene, this is a tough one for me right now. Matt Duchene spent 4 years with Nashville, 249 games played, 197 points. Of course, Matt Duchene, if we're looking at straight to statistics, he holds the franchise record for the most goals in a single season with 43. Of course, that just happened in 21-22, where he was racing Philip Forsberg, who, I don't know, perhaps will be on the list. Second most in points in 21-22, most power play goals in a season in 21-22 with 16. He was fifth in overtime goals for franchise history, third in multi-point games. Here is what hurts my heart the most with Matt Duchene being at 22, Nick, and that is the fact that Matt Duchene could have been so much higher on this list if he'd stuck around, but also without 2021-22, Nick, would Matt Duchene have made this list without that one season?
Probably not.
I know.
That's sort of the thing where Matt Duchene is ranked this low. Is because I think the expectations in some ways weren't really met, Ann.
I would
the
agree.
Nashville Predators signed him after, a Stanley Cup berth and 2 straight Central Division titles. Matt Duchene was, that long, elusive number one center that, Barry Trotz had did this year. Hey, the Predators still have never really had. Matt Duchene was kind of supposed to be that guy. And for a while he was. I mean, remember his first month in Nashville where we were joking and, it's like, Matt Gretzky, everybody was calling him just because he had some insane number. And I think actually led the NHL in points for, I think after the first week of the season, something like that.
Yeah.
And then, for whatever reason, tapered off a little bit, especially after John Hines came in. That's another thing. Of course, the next season, 13 points in that, the COVID
year.
That was one thing when everybody was just clamoring him to leave the team, and then had that, renaissance where he led the team in, goal scoring, broke the Predators all-time goal scoring record. And that to me, that's, I think, maybe changed his legacy a bit, but it is hard, Ann, that, we have to kind of look back and be like, did we really get our money's worth out of Matt Duchene?
Yeah. Well, and he came in, like you said, you're talking money. He came in with this big contract. This is a player that David Poile made no bones about. He wanted him in Nashville. Matt Duchene made no bones about the fact he wanted to be in Nashville. And so it seemed like a marriage made in heaven. But I'm with you. You have to, and it's going to take time, y'all. I'm not ready to figure out where he fits, how to summarize his time in Nashville quite yet, because it's painful to me. But I just don't think the marriage of Duchene and Nashville turned out quite the way everybody hoped that it would. So Matt Duchene, we love you, buddy. You're number 22. Well, I love you. My husband's you're just okay for him.
Yeah. And again, I think the reason he's 22 is because of that 1 year.
Right.
Because,
right.
Yeah, and even last year, not a bad season.
No, not a bad season.
Points, 71 games. I think the reason maybe he's not higher, is because of, some expectations there. Yeah. Let's go to number 21, the last one we'll get to on this episode.
I love this one.
Let's go Craig Smith.
Yes, I love this one. I love this one, not just for Craig Smith alone, but for what we get to talk about when it comes to Craig Smith. So Craig Smith was a 98th overall pick for Nashville in the 2009 draft. He played 9 seasons with the Predators, 661 games. 330 points. I just want to throw this out because I know this stat, we have big feelings about this stat, but can we give a shout out for a plus 67 while he was with the Nashville Predators and had a hat trick.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite thing when it comes to Craig Smith is talking about him when he played in 2019, 2020 in that general area with what I lovingly refer to as the Smith-Baldy line, where it was Craig Smith, Nick Bonino, and Rocco Grimaldi. And they were the best line for the Nashville Predators in 2019, 2020, but they were also one of the best lines in the entire NHL that season. So, Craig Smith was getting some things done.
That was, I think, at one point the best third line in the NHL.
Oh, they were so fantastic.
And say what you want about Pierre Laviolette, but his ability to take those 3 and make them work.
And works so
good.
Well.
Yeah, that's a good eye. And the way he had them playing, because here's the thing about Nick Bonino, Rocco Grimaldi, and Craig Smith is all 3 had their shortcomings.
Yeah.
Especially Craig Smith, they all had their shortcomings, but the way they made it work and, the way that Pierre Laviolette made them play, I don't think we talk enough about that being.
Yes, that was genius. That really was coaching genius to figure out how to piece those 3 together. And here's what we can say about Craig Smith. Never, ever in all of the time that you watched him, did you have your shoot the puck meltdown because Craig Smith was a chronic puck shooter.
The man loved to shoot the puck.
Man loved to shoot the puck. Now, results, maybe didn't match volume of shots, but he also, and I will say this, he also was good at dishing the puck as well.
Well, let's talk about that because, we always talk about, joke about how Craig Smith always aimed for the target in the middle of the crest, but he did have a bunch of 20-goal seasons.
He did. Yeah.
5 seasons of 20 or more goals. For the Nashville Predators, including 5 and 6 years, would have hit that again had COVID not derailed the 2020 season because he was only 1 goal away from that. So, he was just a consistent depth scorer for the Nashville Predators for over a decade, Ann.
Yeah.
Or just at a decade. And I remember when he came up for the first time out of Wisconsin, made the team right out of camp. There's not a lot of players in the Nashville Predators organization that come straight, from juniors or college, whatever, and make the team right away and never play like a game in Milwaukee. He has never Craig Smith has played 4 career games for the Milwaukee Admirals, and that was the next year after his first full year, and that was during the lockout year.
Yeah.
So that was basically just to kind of get his feet under him and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, it feels like Craig Smith is, I think, just because he was always, sort of the second or third fiddle,
Right.
we don't look upon him favorably, but a bunch of depth scoring for 9 seasons is what I'm counting.
Yep. 9 seasons. Yes.
That's pretty good.
It would be huge for the Nashville Predators to have that kind of reliable depth scoring. The other thing, too, I will say about Craig Smith, you give that man consistent line mates, and the line he's on is going to produce. We saw it. He played with Kyle Turris for a while. And again, I go back to Rocco Grimaldi, Nick Bonino. Like, this is a guy who loves him some consistent line mates. And again, with you, depth scoring. Now, here's the downside of Craig Smith for me. And this one is really, really rough. Nashville Predators fans, you're going to have to watch Craig Smith play with Matt Duchene in Dallas Green this season. So, woof.
Yeah.
Woof.
Potential for some backfiring. Right?
Yeah.
So that is the first part of our list, the top 25 Nashville Predators players of all time. Next up is numbers 20 through 16, and this, I think, is when the list gets pretty good. And also where people are going to have some very strong opinions.
Big feels are coming, y'all. Big feels are coming.
Big feels. We'll get to that later this week. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter. Y'all can't say X, just makes me feel dirty. At AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at Twitter, X, whatever it's called, at _NS Morgan, and read my work at penaltyboxradio.com. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back later this week with all new episodes. We'll see you then.